welcome to Reality NW. It's Ladies Night. What can I say? I am one of your hosts, Lauren Pratt, along with my co-host, Sarah Hart. And guess what? We have a special guest crashing Ladies Night, and it is Dan Montchal double dipping today with the podcast. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing pretty good. Got my second win from the Australian podcast earlier and ready to go. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How are you doing tonight, Sarah?
I'm doing pretty great, just rewatched the episode. So I feel like it's very fresh in my memory. So ready to get talking about it, but also just excited to be here.
Honestly, I really enjoyed this season 42 premiere. I thought it was really great, especially with all the character development that we got. And we definitely saw some very interesting moments, which I'm sure we will get to. But ultimately, I want to start with the marooning that we had. I think it was very different from last season in comparison to what we got this season.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that it stinks because I think that part was a great part. That was very different, but then it goes right into the same thing.
Yeah, I was happy to see it was a little bit different. Normally I enjoy when they're jumping off the ships and you get the throwbacks to Borneo. But I think a lot of people had the fear because they were running it back to back we're going to see the same season that we just saw. So it was nice to see that we're already starting out with something that's a little bit different.
I think it's so important to have the different variety because, as you just said, having the back-to-back seasons, we're expecting essentially all the same twists, all the same advantages. And what was so different with this was we got a new advantage that came into play right off the bat in the challenge. And I thought it was so cool to see how those people had to come together and communicate with each other to ultimately make a decision. I don't think we've ever seen that before. So I was definitely excited that that came to be part of the episode.
I thought part of it was weird, obviously with the fake blood and that whole piece of that challenge. But I loved how they all had to come and work together. And I don't know, I was sitting there thinking, isn't the decision obvious?
That was my first thought too, that it's a no-brainer. In what world do you go, no, we'll have an advantage that no one else knows about. Why? I didn't see any downside to it.
I was feeling Drea's vibe right there, and they were both there's no decision. And Lindsay was a little, reserved with her thought process and everything, but she was easily convinced into making that decision. And 100%, that's the right decision. If you have any opportunity to get any type of advantage in this game, and they were able to hide it well, and none of the players had any idea what was going on because we've never seen it before. So they're not expecting something to happen in that type of situation.
I just imagine also being the other players sitting on the beach being what is taking them so long? Seriously, it's been a long time. It didn't take me that long. So
well, and especially then when you have Hyde just dousing blood all over him, being nope, it says we have to do it. Just dump it on. We'll be fine.
I don't think the blood was necessary, honestly. I think just the mud would have been fine, rolling in the sand, but he went all for it, all over his body. He did not care. Meanwhile, they're running back, and you have Lydia saying, what is going on? And it's just perfect coming from her because she's definitely a little quirky, and I love Lydia. I think she's hilarious. Her confessionals were on fire.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that is why I picked her as my winner for the draft. So one of the reasons.
Yeah, I was just surprised. I mean, because you kept hearing it be oh, hi, are you okay? I thought for sure we were going to get something back at camp being he was doused in blood, but can't seem to find any cuts on him.
That's so true. There was nothing there. What I also found interesting as well, I wouldn't even be thinking about if someone's covered in blood. I would just be thinking challenge, 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 and not even worry about it. But again, you had someone such as Daniel, who when he came back to his tribe, everyone was like, buddy, you're fine. No worries. They weren't that concerned. Whereas I think if he would have been on the tribe with Lydia would have been like, oh my God, your arm.
I could definitely see that with her.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I mean, you saw him fall, and it's okay, that's obviously it kind of stung or whatever, but never would have thought that he would have dislocated his shoulder from that.
Right. And then his immediate relief right after, too.
I just love that, he obviously is a fan of the show and was able to call back that, he LaGrossa'd it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing I like about this cast. Many of them are fans of the show, and they've been trying for so many years to get on. And I'm just happy to see fans playing, because me as a fan myself, I would love to play on the show. And I just have seen so many recruits over the years that have no idea what the show is. And it's more fun to watch a super fan play the game, even though some of them don't do as well as others.
Yeah, I do enjoy. I wish that it seems like, to me at least, that this cast, there's a lot of super fans and it's not as much variety as I would usually like to see. I do love the cast, but I also just wish there was more, not because everyone's just like, oh my god, Jeff Probst when they get on the island, and I just was like, oh, so there's a lot of fans in this season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's obviously nice when you have the super fans on that really know the game, but I also think there's something to have those characters like good old Keith Nail that really doesn't know what's going on out there, but just trying his best.
Yeah, speaking of that, obviously we saw right when they all came in, you could tell the people that said, "Oh my God, Jeff, what do I do? I can't even breathe," and they couldn't. So, putting you both in a situation here, if you're out there and you're seeing people talk that way, is that someone that you would necessarily want to work with, or would that make you take a little bit of pause, saying, not really sure if I want that person necessarily on my side?
I think it depends. I mean, I think a lot of it's going to go off based off of your vibes past maybe that initial reaction to, okay, they clearly know the game. I think me personally, I think it would be nice to maybe work with one or two of them, but also work with some people that are a little green around the edges.
Yeah, I think I kind of go along with that same vibe there. If it really depends, like I won't forget, but I will try my best to look forward and past that. And just like I like my Survivor cast, I also like my alliances a little bit diverse when it comes to, types of players and strategists or challenge beast or people who know the show really well.
Right. For instance, Mary Ann, moment I saw her, she would be someone that I 100% would want to work with, but also keeping in the back of your mind, if everyone's watching the way that she's talking, the way she's speaking, instant threat too. And so that's the thing as well. Right off the bat, you show people so quickly how threatening you can be, because everyone's laughing at everything she's saying, and that just comes across very, very likable.
Yeah, I would definitely see that too. And especially just her personality in general. I love her energy. I would be so happy to have her around, but I definitely would be thinking a little bit about, how much does she really know? And she's very eager to do a lot of things. So she must be really eager to do other things in the game as well.
Yeah, I think she's the type of person that would be perfect to have around pre-merge, because you have that huge morale boost. She's always smiling, happy, bubbly, and would seem like a good time and a good person to be around, to spend your time with out there when there's nothing to do. But yeah, I think you'd have to worry about her maybe more as a threat as the game moves on, because I mean, those type of people generally do well when they get deep into the game.
Absolutely. And then obviously we run through the rest of that first initial challenge. And I was surprised that the Ika tribe pulled it out, because on paper, they are 100%, in my opinion, the weakest tribe, no doubt about it. But again, sometimes it's your strong suit and you're able to pull it out, and they did. So they got to start off the game with a little bit of supplies, where the other two tribes had to go back and then earn it, which in my opinion, I think them forcing the players to do the triangle instead of doing the sweat this time was great, because it led to so many hilarious moments.
I loved the montage of the triangles.
My favorite was just, okay, got it, I'm done. And Jenny's just looking around like that. It's impossible. There's no way you're done. Or what, on the other tribe where it was, they're going and he's like, all right, I got 11. And Omar's like, yeah, I have 20 more than you and I'm still going.
Yeah, it was hilarious. And I just think Jenny saying to herself, oh my God, how did I get stuck with these people? Like, they can't do anything with puzzles, nothing. And the same thing with Jonathan. At least Jonathan is self-aware of himself to know, not my strong suit. I'm going to go off and try and collect anything that can help build a shelter, because I'm useless in this situation, which I thought, even though they didn't have a machete to work with, I thought their strategy was a little bit better, because you can still get some things accomplished.
Oh, I completely agree. Why have that many people working on one puzzle? And especially if somebody's not going to be able to be helpful in the puzzle, let them go do something else that they can be helpful in. Save you time later.
Yeah, I agree with kind of both of what you both said is that why not have, the people that aren't going to be able to do well or contribute to it, have them go start to collect supplies. So then hopefully when your puzzle people do get it right, you already have a lot of that material already there. And I think it breaks down to how you see a lot of the tribe challenges, like breaking it up into people's strong suits. That way, at the end, you're accomplishing your goal.
Right. And that's the other thing too. It's so difficult having someone just stand up and say, all right, we need to actually make this movement, because then you don't want to necessarily come off as a leader, which we get over to the Ika tribe and we definitely see some leadership there. Roxroy Bailey, the only person that said their last name in the introductions, everyone else just used their first name. So he right away came out with that bold statement, like, I'm here, you will listen.
Oh no, I'm worried for my peoples, but that's okay. I mean, I like Roxroy. I think he just needs to tone it down. I just think about that one moment where he was like, "So, am I? Just let me know if I'm like a little bit too lectury." And they're like, "Yeah, I could just tone it down a little bit."
Yeah, that's what I was going to highlight on, is that he may have been coming off too strong or whatever, but at least he was able to ask and had maybe not the most self-awareness, but it at least kicked in at some point that, hey, maybe I am starting to rub people the wrong way.
And he asked the right person. I think asking Drea is going to be pretty honest with you. So he went to the correct person and just saying, hey, do I actually need to tone it down? But looking at the tribes, actually, I will say, I think Roxroy would have done better on a different one, because he really did get stuck with three youngins, that I like to call them, even though Tori is, I think, 25. But then you have Zach and Swati. So I do think Roxroy would have thrived with a different group of people that were out there that are going to be able to work. Particularly, I would say the Vati tribe, which is the green tribe. They all were kind of in unison with one another and able to put together a shelter and work together pretty smoothly.
Yeah, actually, that's a tribe I was just looking at my little paper, and yeah, that's a tribe I would have put him on. I think him and Mike could have possibly gotten along well. I think they would have kind of respected each other quite a bit. Maybe gotten a little annoyed, but I think they would have respected each other.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I'll say about this cast. I mean, we saw that, Roxroy had some self-awareness. Jonathan had his self-awareness that, hey, he can't do this. And then you brought up Mike, and Mike had the same thing, is that, perception of him can be that he's always angry. So he's self-aware enough to say, I need to go out of my way to make sure that that doesn't become a thing.
For sure. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just gonna say maybe that'll be a common theme of the season, because I feel like every season has a bit of a theme of what the cast holds or kind of what the story is, and maybe that'll be that idea of self-awareness and how much that can help your game or maybe hurt it.
Which I think a couple people still on the Ika tribe were lacking just a little bit of self-awareness, for sure. That tribe is a hot mess, train wreck. They are going to be the Ua tribe from last season, in my opinion. I just don't see them winning many challenges. I could be wrong, but just the way it's going at this point, I'm very, very concerned for the 5 individuals left on that tribe.
Yeah, I could very well see that, but I mean, that's what we initially thought with the Ua tribe. And yes, they had that rough start, but they ultimately only lost those first 2 challenges, and they never had to vote anyone off. So never know.
You never know, but then you have the Taku tribe, which, in my opinion, that I feel like this always happens with Survivor, where one tribe is particularly stacked with a ton of badass people. Because how are you putting Jonathan and Lindsay both on the same tribe, who, in my eyes, are just the brunt work of challenges, for sure?
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine that there was probably some rhyme or reason for it, and it wasn't just to be completely unfair stacked, but there's definitely always a few, tribal divisions that are some head scratchers, and they definitely seem to be the horses that, that tribe's going to do really well in challenges, but you never know.
I like to be wrong, but I hope I'm right, because being right is more fun. So I want to get y'all's takes, though. on this new amulet advantage that we see, because I found it really interesting that they had all three of them read it, so we're getting their take as they're seeing what the advantage could be and getting their initial reactions as it's happening.
So I think it's interesting that they kind of all read and they're like, oh, this is awesome. Like we can work together. And then they kind of keep reading and they're like, wait, hold on. So this is really powerful, but it's going to be extra powerful when I vote up the two people that I'm working with on this and they're thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that is needed because as we kind of discussed earlier, that when they found it, it's a no-brainer. Like you have to take that advantage. And I feel like there has to be some drawback to taking it. And you didn't see it right away, but finally when they reveal it, you're able to see, oh, okay, like we thought this was going to bond the three of us together, post-merge, that it's an alliance no one will know about, but maybe that's not the case.
I think Drea is going to strike first out of the three of them to try and turn on one of the other two to get them out, because Drea comes across to me as someone that came to play the moment that she stepped on the beach, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. She could potentially be playing a little bit too hard because right now in the game, she's the only person that has two advantages.
I think the only thing with her and what I've noticed, and this might be slightly jumping a little bit, but is she was kind of getting on people's nerves, I felt like a little bit. So I don't know if she's going to be somebody that she's playing so hard that people are going to notice that and want to boot her too. So I don't know. I guess I could go both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to say that, certain people are like, oh, we got to get them out. But I think a lot of it's going to look at what does the tribe look like specifically when it gets to merge, because maybe you have the thoughts of, oh, I'm going to cut everyone's throat, play this badass game. But if you go in down in numbers, then obviously you have to alter. And maybe that's at least you have some people to go back to being like, hey, we have some of a connection.
Yeah. But again, also thinking about that too, if you jump the gun and get one of them out just to get yourself an idol, so you have to eliminate the other two, that idol might not necessarily help you. Having allies sometimes is better than having advantages moving forward in the game.
No, you're not wrong. And this is a side note, but the only thing that it made me think of is I love that they called it an amulet, because it just brought me back to Panama. And it's the first challenge where they had to run out. And it's the older woman's tribe yelling, like, get the amulet, get the amulet.
Wow, you just unlocked a memory for me. Thank you.
I thought it was great too. And that's also in the challenge where I think it was Austin who took a face plant or something right away as well, which we saw at the beginning of this initial challenge that happened on this season. So, I mean, going full circle here.
Yeah, I remember you, Ruth Murray. You are a smasher.
Oh my goodness. No, I love that. So we're going to see what's going to happen with that advantage. I'm excited to see how this one plays out because it is new. And I typically don't necessarily like a ton of new advantages that come into play, but this one I think is going to lead to some interesting gameplay moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely like it better than last season with the 3 idols, where you had to say the sentence. I feel like, I don't know, it could be wrong, but it feels like this is kind of the same thing, but not. And I definitely like this one better. I mean, there could be an idol, there could be phrases again. I don't know, but so far.
Didn't we see something in there that there was going to be phrases? Maybe it was on like kind of before the show really started, or I could have sworn there was a scene somewhere that was hinting at those dumb phrases.
I'm fully prepared for the phrases. I am concerned what some of the phrases are going to be, but I will say at least it leads to funny television, and it made me crack up last season. And I want to see if they play it differently than the cast members in 41. Obviously, they didn't see 41, but I do think people could make different types of moves and maybe wait to say a phrase and not like do it right away. And that could help them, because if you hear a phrase 3 times, then people start to think in their head, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was just going to say, Xander was really early. I feel like he was like right away. He's like, I'm going to say this, and crickets.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it plays out, because there were the 3 idols last season, but everyone knew about them, which kind of took away some of their power, just because if everyone knows that you have them, it's honestly not all that valuable.
It can work and it can somewhat work because people are scared that you can potentially play it. But again, people know if you have it, knowledge is power. Well, knowledge is power didn't work out too well for somebody last season. But again, you still have to know what's going on within the game, which I kind of want to transition over to the Taku tribe and get to the fireside chat that we saw with Jackson, because Jackson was somebody that I was really intrigued to see on this season. I think Jackson's bio was very interesting, and I'm glad he was still able to play.
Yeah. So speaking as like the mental health professional here about that whole situation with Jackson, because we do want to jump into that part or when he's kind of discussing his story.
We can cover it all right here if we want to. I say let's
Cool.
just go for it.
Well, I think it was cool that he just came out on, before he was talked to by Jeff around the fire, talking about how, he's really transitioning and transitioned, or in the process, and kind of like let people know kind of last minute, and that he just wanted people to know who he was. And I commemorated him so much for being able to say that, because it is a hard thing to do. And he could have just gone the whole time without saying the damn thing, really. So I commended him a lot for that and the rest of his story.
Yeah, I thought it was important that he shared. I mean, not that it was important that he had to, but I think anytime that you're able to open up to your tribe mates and let them know who you really are, a lot of times I think that's only going to benefit you because they feel more connected to you. And I think the quicker that a tribe becomes connected to someone, it makes them harder to vote out. You bond with them more and you feel like you really know them, as opposed to maybe someone on the tribe who isn't, opening up much. And so I was happy that he did it. His whole story, I thought it was important that they left it in there.
I thought it was so important that the show gave us that moment of Jackson. And also, you're right, with being able to open up to other people, it lets those people into your life a little bit. They get to know you better and they can see your genuine, pure self that you are. Whereas some people, if they don't share enough of their story, people don't necessarily know where they're coming from. Where I feel as though Jackson said, you know what, I feel comfortable with these people. I want these people to know who I am as a person.
Yeah. And then we get over to Jeff coming on the island. Everyone's really excited. Wow, Jeff's here, but it's not really for the best. Want to have a private chat with Jackson, and it's about talking about medications. So, lithium. Whoever doesn't know, lithium is so. My issue was that I was happy they openly talked about it, but I also feel like they gave the audience incorrect information. Which was my problem with it, because lithium is not at all used to treat sleep and anxiety. It will never get used for those things. It just won't. It's a heavy duty medication. It's uber dangerous. You have to get your blood tested periodically. You can die from this medication if it becomes toxic in your system. It is used for bipolar disorder. That's like the only thing it's used for. It's for mood stabilization. So I kind of feel like, unless he didn't want to come out and say that, it disappoints me as like a mental health provider to see that even on show like Survivor that's trying to be so with it and with the times, there's still a huge mental health stigma related to mental health issues and disorders like bipolar disorder.
No, that's all really interesting because I didn't know much about it. So when it came up, I pulled up my phone, started Googling because I didn't know the first thing.
Yeah. So, and it is very true. And it's unfortunate because I feel like if Jackson just came out and told them like, hey, I'm on this medication now, but I'm working on getting off of it so that for the show, I'm not on it anymore. It could have worked against him, but I think it still did because it is a really dangerous medication. I know I haven't read a lot of the comments about what people, because I know I'm probably just going to get annoyed, to be honest, but it is a really dangerous medication. Like even for people that aren't doing what Jackson is doing, it's extremely dangerous. And it's a very old school medication that is one of the first of its kind to treat the disorder. So it's hefty.
Yeah, I think like with anything that happened in Survivor, you have people on both sides of it. There was a lot of people that were, oh, he took someone's spot to play, but I mean, they picked him for a reason, for who he was and for who his character was and
Mhm.
what they saw he could possibly do out there. So I think you have to trust their casting. Maybe not
Yeah.
all the time, but recently anyway.
And I'm not
Right.
mad at anybody for it. I don't think anybody did anything wrong in this situation either. I think that, I wish that Jackson's came forward and said something or worked it out or did something, or there could have been something done, because there is other options too. Like lithium's not the only medication. It could have been a talk with Jackson's doctor about, hey, is there a different medication that I can try that could maybe help me so that I can be managed on the island, that maybe would have been allowed.
Right, and that's where I think Jeff was getting at too, because Jeff basically right off the bat told Jackson, "We had you on this cast for a reason." I mean, obviously, you have to trust in casting. They want particular people, and Jackson fitted exactly what they were wanting for this season, season 42. And I feel bad about this situation because I liked what I saw of Jackson, but again, if it's dangerous, Jackson has to go, and that's what's best for Jackson's health overall.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, because I was, after hearing Jackson, and I was very excited to see. I mean, obviously, like being at the viewing party, I obviously knew Jackson, like what happened, so it wasn't really like a surprise to me, like watching it again. But at the same time, I was just like, we missed out on someone really great, I think.
Yeah, because from the little bit of time that you saw him on camera, you were drawn into his story, you were drawn into him as a character and as a person. And so, it kind of just leaves you thinking, like what could have been, because I think we had only just scratched the surface. Like there was a lot more that we could have gotten from Jackson that seemingly probably would have been really good stuff.
Yeah. The other thing I wonder too is they do all the medical stuff like going onto the show. I'm shocked that they didn't see it in his system.
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably an answer we most likely won't get then.
I would assume they would, but also if they're not specifically testing, I mean, I don't know how blood works and blood tests, but I would assume that you would see a substance in the blood or levels being higher. But if they're not testing specifically for lithium, because Jackson didn't say that he was on lithium, makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's not really an easy way to transition from this, but definitely we are glad to see Jackson on the show. And maybe one day in the future, Jackson will be able to return to the show. You never know what can happen. There's always potential for second chances. We don't know. But I want to get into a little bit of alliances here and just, circle over to the Vati tribe, the Green tribe, because we didn't see too much with alliances, but we got a little bit from them in the sense of we have a little bit of duo-ship happening here, which in a 6-person tribe, that's essentially normally what does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see a lot of either duos or pairs of 3, which I don't understand why you rarely see a group of 4 form together, but I guess it's just, what do I know? I'm not out there. I don't know exactly how it works.
Right. So essentially the duos that we did see, we saw Hai and Lydia link up, we saw Mike and Jenny link up, and then you had Chanel, who was basically saying, all right, got to find my partner, picks up a partner in Daniel. So I'm interested to see moving forward which 2 duos are going to link up with each other, because you're going to need a 4. But we really didn't see that with their tribe. And I honestly am curious to know from the both of you, which people do you think are going to mesh well together?
On that tribe?
On that tribe, yeah.
I think Lydia and Hai are going to get along really well. She seems like somebody who's going to get along with most people, working especially in the kind of environment she is. And I love when she was like talking about being in nature and how it like sand being on her body was like terrifying. Made me chuckle. But she's a comic writer, and usually female comedians are very familiar with like being around other men and being funny. Who doesn't like to be around somebody who's funny? So I think, and Hai seems also a little funny himself. So I think they'll get along really well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be Lydia and Hai they'll be the ones picking the direction they want to go with when they start, whenever they do have to vote someone out. I think they'll be the ones that'll have the decision, as long as it stays in the pairs as it is now, is they'll be deciding which way they want to go.
I'm all for that. I'm on the Lydia and High train at the moment. I just think they're going to be such fun characters to follow on this season. And they had good confessionals in the episode. So that means to me that either they potentially are going to go far or something's going to happen where they could, get axed early on. I don't try and look at confessionals too much, but what we saw last season was someone that got minimal to none made it very, very far in the game. And someone that had confessionals early on, a ton of them, went decently early when it came to the merge.
Yeah, it's hard to tell always what story they're trying to tell. Because, I mean, if you're referring to last season, I mean, we even had JD who was getting a ton of confessionals out of the bat and then was gone early. So I don't know. I think, as Sarah had mentioned earlier, that there's generally a theme to the season, a story that they're trying to tell, but I think it's just way too early to try to predict necessarily what that's going to be.
With this cast, they can go in so many different directions because I do think there are a ton of good stories from the cast members. We got a lot of it in the episode. Daniel's story, even, and it just came up by Mike asking about a scar. And that's the little moments that happen where how you bond with one another. And the fact that he then was able to explain to his tribe everything that he has been through with his life. And then we get the flashback to his story. It was great.
Yeah, I was happy for, Daniel, that especially after it started out so, I guess meager with separating his shoulder right off the bat. I'm rooting for him, and even more so because of his story, but as a selfish reason, just for my namesake, because it has not gone well for a lot of people with my name. So just want one to go well.
I can understand that. Sometimes we want things for like our own reason.
I'm rooting for Daniel. There, honestly, after this episode, there's not one person I'm not rooting for. Sometimes going into a season, I go, oh, nope, I'm out on this person. I'll never be in with this person. There's just no way. I didn't get that with this cast.
Yeah, I feel like it was the same for me, at least in 41. I think that's one thing that the 41 and 42 are doing well. I think they're picking good characters, but I also am kind of like, I'm sort of missing the wild characters a little bit. Because I feel like we haven't had anybody that's really different these two seasons.
So who's gonna pop off first? I honestly, based on episode 1, we didn't see too much. Anyone's obviously not that upset with one another, but who do we think on this season is just going to go off the rail?
Like in what way?
Oh, just go off on somebody and get in a fight, argument.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I like putting people on the spot. This is very fun for me.
I actually think Tori.
Tori's spicy.
But also, being a therapist, she knows how to keep her cool. She knows she's probably gotten called every name in the book and sat there with a straight face or a smile. So, maybe she would be able to keep her cool. But also, when you're not eating, sleeping, it's not always the easiest.
Yeah, I could see her. I could also see Lydia being that person.
Really?
Okay.
I think it's possible. It's not the one that I would necessarily be like, that's my favorite, that she's going to be the one that does it. But I could just see, I don't know, just all when things aren't going well, getting hungry. I think that she has a lot that she could say.
I love that because she comes across as a very, very sweet girl, but also, those type of people that are the sweetest on earth every single day. And then you just do one thing that ticks them off. Ultimately, they snap and go off and you're not even prepared for it and you don't know what to do. You just stand there in disbelief saying, what just happened?
Yeah.
I was trying to give a little bit of a different answer other than maybe like Roxroy or something like that. But, I think there's a side of her. Maybe, you won't like her when she's angry.
I think, honestly, I get vibes that it's going to be more women this season than men. Because I think we have a lot of very strong, independent women on this season.
I think it's going to be a women-dominated season, not just because you have a lot of the strong ones, but you look at it like the only really big guy is Jonathan. Like, I think when it comes down to it, I think you're going to see women dominating the challenges, I think it's going to be a pretty heavy women-led season.
I'm here for it. We're on ladies' night along with Dan, but yeah, we're all for the women thriving and doing well, of course.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And I mean, it would be nice too. I mean, we had the female winner last season, but we haven't had a lot of female winners. Or it would be cool to see a women's alliance actually work and it not just be, oh, it's a women's alliance. And it would be cool to see that again. We've really only seen that work really well once, and it'd be great to see it again.
Absolutely. So do we want to talk about the island shenanigans that have come back yet again for this season? Dan's already shaking his head no. So Dan, I will let you start with your take. Let me have it. I want to hear it.
I don't like the twists. Like you're pulling 3 people away and it bonds them, but you're going to see the same thing where maybe we're not seeing it, but it's just going to lead to the next time, where as they're on the walk, it's going to lead to people, bartering with deals of, oh, let me take the advantage. And I think they should have learned from the lesson on this one that, yes, I get that like it bonded a few people last season, but I think overall it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I don't know, it's just a big walk. And
more exercise, more burning of calories.
Right? It's just, I don't know. I was just kind of like, okay, so we're doing the exact same thing. Cool.
Did they really bond though? Because the 3 people that went were Jenny, Marianne, and Drea, and I just thought the conversation was very not there. It's very stale. And the first time we saw it last season, they kind of all came together and bonded rather quickly with each other, whereas these 3 girls were just probably doing their own thing. But I will say this, Jenny, I actually think has really good reads on people because she had the self-awareness to know, all right, the people that I just spent time with are probably going to risk. It's better for me to protect so then I don't lose a vote moving forward.
No, it was a very good read on her part. But when she realized that, I wanted her just to risk it to make sure no one got it. Obviously, that's not the smart thing to do, but that's what I was hoping for.
Well, if Johnny was here, Johnny would say you always risk it.
Yep. Risk it for the biscuit.
Risking it as always, but also in that trek we had Mary Ann's story, and I'm here for the weirdos. Let's go. I love it. I love that she's on this cast. I think casting her is a home run.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to Mary Ann, and I just kind of love her. I love it. She's walking up this thing barefoot, like trudging along. She's like, National Guards woman. I was the weird kid. And then she's just so full of energy and full of life. And you just can't help but just be really happy when you're around a person like that.
Yeah, and you see it. I mean, so far in the first episode, every time that she's on screen, like she pops and she's there. And that says something. That's someone who is just a dynamic character that isn't like everyone else. And I think it's a very good thing.
I'm interested to see with her, though, as the season progresses, how she will do with lack of food and being a little bit dehydrated and all of that, only because we see it time and time again on seasons where some people come right out of the gate, have all of this energy within them, and then they get drained more and more. I just hope we don't see that with her. I hope we get the entire bit of her fun-loving energy this entire season.
I don't know. I don't think I worry about that too much because of being in the Army National Guard. I mean, she has to go through basic training. Basic training is no joke. That's hard. And it's not like you're getting, tons of food. I mean, you're getting enough food, but I have a feeling that she's very resilient of a person.
Yeah, and someone who from what little we've seen, she just gathers is, this is truly who she is. So obviously, you'd expect to have some rough days out there, but I think she's generally someone that tries to bring the positivity and bring the good out, and whatever the situation may be.
For sure. And moving right along here, let's dive into that immunity challenge, shall we? That was a doozy. Honestly, it's been a minute since I've seen anything that physically demanding and that hard, especially when you're on a tribe of 6 and yet you don't get 6 to participate. You go down to 5, and that makes it so much tougher.
I was tired after watching this.
Yeah, I mean that moving that boat, like that's no joke. Those things, it's not going to move easily through the sand. You're going to get all the resistance in the world. Then adding the cargo net to it, like there's nothing easy about that.
I've never seen a challenge either where they clip right after it's over to them going immediately to their water. That's how exhausting it was. They normally don't show us all of that, but everyone was just drained. And I know people were, cutting up each other, not doing well and not performing in that challenge. But I'm sorry, I am Zach's size. And that's if you're that small, it no matter how much strength you have in your arms or anything like that, it's going to be difficult to push and to move no matter what. That helps with the people that are a little bit taller and a little bit bigger. It's easier. I'm not going to lie. It is.
Yeah. I mean, having longer legs and just longer arms in general, I think helps. And speaking as a short person, I think that I would too struggle in this a lot.
Yeah, especially when he was put in that situation where he was already exhausted, and then puzzles may be his thing, but when I mean, how often do you do a puzzle where you're absolutely dead? Like it just completely changes. I know I never have actually done it, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking to it, but I could just imagine that when you're exhausted, you're not thinking straight, maybe you're missing the small details when you're trying to line up the colors, that it's a rough one.
You can't train for that. You can't train to go through a grueling thing such as the beginning of that challenge and then having to mentally get your brain together to think to put together a puzzle. But I also want to add this as well. I'm sorry. They should never have gotten any flack for not performing well in that puzzle, being Zach and Swati, only because they were very, very far behind. That would have been a huge comeback if they were to have completed that puzzle and beaten one of the other tribes. So with anyone putting that on challenge performance, putting that on the puzzle people, I think is a huge mistake.
I think it was more used that they already wanted Zach out, and that was just, you're able to add that as another reason to it. But I don't think that it was simply because of that puzzle.
I agree. I don't think it was simply because of the puzzle, but people make that statement, well, they were on the puzzle together. Let's just get rid of one of them, which in my opinion, nothing is fair in Survivor, but find a different reason, to target someone, which they did have a different reason for doing so. But again, that should not have been part of your reason to essentially want to put Zach out first.
Mm-hmm. I think that I'm seeing if there's anybody. It's just tough because I look at that whole tribe and I like a lot of people on this whole cast, so it's hard to say. But I feel like I didn't get as much out of Zach as I did like other players. So,
yeah, I think that one was it's tough. Like and I don't know who was really going to swap out for him in the puzzle either. Like that tribe's they're undersized. They were never going to do well in a challenge like this.
Poor them.
That's what I'm saying. Very poor them. I'm very nervous for my winner pick, Tori. I thought Tori was great TV this episode, but I'm a little concerned moving forward how she's going to maneuver this game. I have high hopes, though. She'll be able to come back. I'm hoping so. But again, overall, that tribe, if they're able to pull themselves together, they're definitely an interesting group of people to follow.
I would definitely agree on that. It's a very, very just interesting group of people. I think that tribe in particular, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's one of the ones where, you said they might be, like an UA that gets decimated. I don't want to say it's for the good because I don't think, anyone should be going for that reason. But they seem like a tribe that maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because I couldn't see if, somehow miraculously it pulls together, the 5 of them stick together. Like I could never see that happening.
I feel as though what they did when they divided the tribes, they said, Taku, here's the group. Vati, here's the group. All right, Ika, we're just going to throw these 6 people together and just see what happens.
Well, it's a TV show first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. But I've never seen just dysfunction like this right off the bat, where you have who they call Dad and Roxroy, very direct with what he wants to do. And then you have the kids that are on the tribe. And then you have Drea, who I think is playing very, very hard right now. And then you have Romeo, who goes, oh God, what did I get myself into?
Oh, it'll be interesting to see what happens, that's for sure. But tribal was interesting.
Let's talk about tribal. I'm ready to hear y'all's thoughts on that.
Well, the only thing that I really thought about in that was just what Zach did. But is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in that and tribal?
I think for the most part, it was pretty straightforward. And as soon as Jeff let him, give the whole fire his life, I was like, oh, buddy, no, this isn't what you want.
I think they set him up for that.
They
did.
You're
going home. We'll let you say the line, and you'll be the first one voted out.
Oh, poor buddy.
I do feel bad, but they set him up.
And I was so shocked too. So I'm also wondering, are we going to see the shot in the dark done a lot more this season?
I have a feeling so, because he made a huge point by playing it on vote number 1, and so people are gonna, I think contemplate it now. My only thing with this, you should never make someone know 100% that they are going because of that factor right there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I do think Tori probably would have been the vote if Zach ended up being safe, because they would have all, I'm assuming, voted again, because every single one of them voted for Zach in that situation. Now, if it were me, I probably would have thrown potentially a rogue vote somewhere else just in case, because no one wants to be the first person voted out.
Yeah, I am completely against the shot in the dark. I'm not a huge fan of it. Maybe, it's just more of the purists. But I think if it's a direction that they're going to go, I almost think that they need to make it a little bit more likely that it happens. Because at 1 in 6, it's almost never going to happen. And if you really want that to play a part where it's enough to scare people and making sure that, you're not letting them know that they're going home, I think you got to make it like a 1 in 4 chance. Really 1 in 4, 1 in 3, really juice up the odds.
It would be cool if they merged the that and the, I forgot the name of it, but the one that Deshaun did last season, where he had to do the choose the box, like something more like that, where it's like where it's like less odds, but there's still a lot of risk, where it's not really likely that it's pretty unlikely that you'll get it, but you could still get it.
Yeah. Or, it's just as mind numbing as, we're going to give you a dice and you're going to exchange it for a roll of paper.
One little tiny scroll, and it might have safe or not safe on it. You just don't know. You have to risk it and see what happens with that situation. But one thing from that trouble I do want to say, Tori's body language towards Zach killed me on the inside. That's what I'm saying. If she's not working with you, you know it.
Yeah, I don't know. She could be digging herself a little hole, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think she either is going to bounce back very nicely, or it's just the start of a little bit of a tumble.
I do think that she's very confident in her therapy abilities, that she thinks that this is going to bring home the million. This is going to get me to have everyone trust me. But I think she's missing all these little pieces. So I hope that she can pick up on those and be able to kind of maneuver herself back on in there.
It's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see what's going to happen moving forward on this season. But again, great cast, and I'm very excited. And I think, too, we're going to see some really strategic minds coming out and some good gameplay. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen. But Dan, give it to me. Who's your winner pick?
Winner pick. If I had to go right now, I am in a toss between. Give me Jenny.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Jenny did not, for those of you that don't know, Jenny did not get selected in the draft. Actually, Jenny went to Johnny's team. And I will say, now watching this episode, Jenny is going to be a force, I think, in this season. So I'm a little sad I did not select Jenny for my draft team. But my winner pick, I'm also very concerned for because I went out with a statement at the beginning of the draft and I said, Tori all the way, let's go. And I watch episode 1 and I go, oh no.
I think Jenny's biggest issue is going to be the fact that if she is clearly that good at puzzles, it's going to put her on as a threat. But I think there's a path. And as far as, just having the little bit of information, maybe I change my answer the more that I think about it, but it's what I said. It's what I'm going to stick with. So we're sticking with Jenny.
It's locked. You're locked and loaded. Sarah, who do you have again?
Well, I have Lydia as like my winner pick. I have to say though, like Spotty's on my team, and I do have really high hopes for Spotty this season.
We're gonna see what happens. I think that I will say I want to talk about a couple of people I am concerned for after this episode. Oh, I think either Roxroy or Drea is going to find themselves in some type of trouble at some point within that tribe. I still think Tori is going to have a couple issues. The Green tribe right now, Vati, I'm not sure where everyone's head's at. We haven't seen enough with alliances. And I'm going to say Taku because we haven't seen much of her, that's one thing, we saw last season. You didn't see much of anybody. And then they went far. I'm a little concerned for Mariah. I don't know if I can see Mariah meshing as well with everyone else that is on that Taku tribe that's left.
Yeah, we saw some from her, but we didn't see a lot. So
No, she had a pretty quiet premiere.
Yeah, but it is a wide range of personalities on that tribe too. So it'll be interesting. I feel like every tribe has their people for sure. Just looking at this list.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Sarah, take us home.
All right. So some things that you can look forward to in the future. We have Big Brother Canada with Brent and Bobby. We also have the recap on Wednesdays with Matt, Johnny, and Alex Trias, the Survivor recap. And we also have my show, The Mind After the Game, every Monday. And we might be skipping a week this upcoming week, but you can also look at Lyrsa's interview with me today that just aired a couple hours ago.
And Lyrsa is a great person to have on the podcast. She has been on the podcast a couple times with us now. Yep. So definitely check her out because I guarantee you Lyrsa probably did not hold back with anything.
She did not. Definitely not.
All right. Well, with that, Dan, thank you so much for joining Sarah and I tonight. It's always great talking with you on the podcast. I think you have really great insights to the episode. So thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you two having me.
Yeah, of course.
Well, with that, good night, everyone.
Good night.
And for more reality NSFW content, visit adfreeNSFW.com.